don't take this the wrong way, but just so you understand, I believe, and the magic word is believe, that there is a God. Doesn't make it true. Religion is a belief system because you believe it. They call it a faith because you have faith. We had a patient in the hospital. She was walking her dog in the field, and she either had a stroke or a heart attack, and nobody knows how long she was without oxygen. The mother asked me after about a month and a half if I believed that God heard all prayers. I said, listen, when I'm on my motorcycle, I'm davening. I practice all my cantorial stuff when I'm on a motorcycle. I mean, I pulled up next to a group of Hasidim in the middle of New York City, and I'm practicing stuff from High Holidays. Excuse me, they looked at some lunatic on a motorcycle singing, Get me, they didn't know what to do. But I said to her, she said, do you believe that God hears all prayers? And I said, you know that I'm a rabbi, but the first word that I'm going to use, you're not going to like. If there is a God, she looked at me. I don't know if there is one. I believe there is one, doesn't make it real. Then yes, he or she, depending on what your bent is in your belief in God, hears all prayers. Sometimes the answer is no. What if there is no God? And if there is no God, then my prayers and what I do spiritually is putting good energy into the universe. And that's a win in and of itself.
Welcome to Riding Counsel with Rich Jaffe, where the open road meets expert advice. I'm Richard Jaffe, an attorney and biking enthusiast, and this is the podcast where we dive into the world of motorcycling, safety, culture, charitable giving, and riding right. So, whether you're a seasoned rider or just getting started, let's talk bikes, the road, and everything in between. Let's ride! All right. Hello, everyone in Riding Counsel podcast land. I am Rich Jaffe, and I am a podcaster. I am a motorcycle enthusiast, and I am someone who you need to call if you've been in an accident as a result of somebody else's negligence here at ridingcounsel.com. I'm a lawyer. And I'm here with a very special guest, and I really appreciate his time. His name is Rabbi Lenny Mandel, and this is a rabbi who rides. So you're going to want to listen, everybody, and we're going to get some really good information about riding from the spiritual side of things. So, Rabbi Lenny, thanks so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you having here.
Thank you for asking me.
So, I mean, look, I feel like I know what a rabbi is, but why don't you tell us what is a rabbi?
It's a very good question. I ask myself that question almost every day. Literally, a rabbi is an ordained member of the clergy of the Jewish faith, as a priest is for Catholics, and as a reverend for Christians, an imam for Muslims, etc., etc. I went to rabbinical school, and I've had a pulpit for 27 years. Ironically, my pulpit is as the cantor of the synagogue. Even though I'm an ordained rabbi, I just get away with much more stuff, and I have much more fun being the cantor. You know, I write services to the Beatles, to Billy Joel, to Broadway, and you know, that's what my job as a rabbi. I mean, I'm the rabbi at Overlook Medical Center in Summit, only for the last year, and it puts a different perspective on your life when you see people who don't know if they're ever getting out of the hospital again.
This episode has been brought to you by Riding Counsel. Don't forget to visit us at ridingcounsel.com. Yeah, it must. And you seem to be able to see things from the spiritual side. And you also ride motorcycles.
Well, it's an interesting story. When I was 13 years old, I went to a yeshiva. And for people that don't know what a yeshiva is, it's a parochial school for Jewish kids. We went from 8 o'clock in the morning. 8 to 12 was Hebrew, Bible, you know, all the religious stuff. 12 to 1, 12 to 12:30, or 12 to 1 was lunch. And then 1 to 4:30 was everything that all my friends learned in public school. But in the 8th grade, we had to be at early morning prayers. And my dad had a good friend, Bob Schindler, who lived in our building, who was an engineer for WPIX radio, television back in the day. And he used to ride his motor scooter to work every day. Wind, snow, rain, he didn't care. And my father wasn't up that early, and he would put me on the back of his motor scooter and take me to school, to my morning prayers. And I'd be holding my skull cap on with one hand and holding onto his belt with the other hand. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to ride. And he taught me, to my father's chagrin, how to drive that Vespa or how to ride that Vespa, and I was 14 and a half years old. My father wasn't very happy that I was riding unlawfully in
Hmm.
the streets of Brooklyn. And the first shot I got to buy my own motorcycle, and ironically, just so you know, my dad had a motorcycle in Vienna. And
Wow.
when Hitler came into Vienna, he arrested my dad and took his motorcycle.
Hmm.
I actually have a picture of my dad with his bike. His bike was called a Push.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, and when he told me you can't ride a motorcycle, I said, come on, Dad, this is not, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He goes, you know how many cars were on the road in 1938 as opposed to what are on the road now? And it didn't really work because I saved up my own money. I was about $400-500, and I bought a Suzuki 150. That was my first motorcycle, which I rode and I raced. And it's actually a cute story. I was on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn. There's a 2 block stretch which has no lights, and I used to race. I raced, Honda 150s, Ducati 160s, the 300 Dream, which I called the 300 Pig, the Honda. And one day my father happened to be on Ocean Parkway, and he put his car in front of my bike, told me to go up onto the sidewalk, give me the keys, he said. I said, Dad, it's 2 miles home. He goes, give me the keys. And he took the keys to my motorcycle, and I'm sitting there, and I waited till my father was 2 blocks away. I took the spare key out of my wallet, and I rode over to a buddy of mine's house, and I spent 2.5 hours at my buddy's house. Rode home. We lived in an apartment house, so I rented for $15 a month a garage a block and a half away. I walked through sprinklers on the way home, so my father would think I was. And trust me, my father was no schmuck. He knew that I whatever I did, but I walked upstairs, and I went into the apartment, and I said, "Listen, I'm sweating. I got to take a shower." He goes, now you know what it means when I catch you racing. I said, "No problem, Dad. No problem." I think to the day he died, he knew I was completely FOS, but it is. I said to him, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," which he
You
needed.
really played the part. You really, you did the whole sweat thing and the whole wow, that's amazing. You really acted it up.
I figured I had to act it out because my father was no dummy. It's what he would say when I came to this country. I came by plane, not by boat, which isn't true. Like what I say is, people, I was born at night, but not last night. Um, from the 150 Suzuki, I went to a 650 Diesel Lightning rocket, which I rebuilt. And as I noticed in the old days, you had to just with a pencil and a piece of paper, you could put the registration number, give it to the DMV, and they'd register the bike. The
Right.
problem was that 5 numbers were here, one number was here, one number was here. So I had to keep moving the paper up and down to see if I could get it registered. And I went from there to Triumphs and to I actually rode a Royal Enfield, which I knew I wouldn't be able to ride because it had the worst gearbox in creation. And in 1969, after Woodstock, I went to Barcelona, and I lived in Barcelona for 2 years. And I apologize, I didn't have a buddy of mine who was British had a 1946 Harley flathead tank shift suicide clutch.
Oh my
And
God.
he said,
Oh,
I'm going away. Seeing you ride because a couple of kids came on junior year abroad from University of Buffalo, and they had I think they had Triumph Bonnevilles, and I rode their bike a couple of days. And he said, "Why don't you take my bike I'll be back in a half a year." So I said, "Great." You know what a Seat is, right? It's
oh,
the
sure. Yeah,
Fiat.
it's a
My bike was
European.
bigger
Yeah.
than the Seats. I mean,
Oh
it was this
man.
big bike. And, it was a piss. I mean, I loved it. I really loved it. And when I came back to the States a couple of years later, I was I was at a music drama counselor at a camp, a left wing socialist camp called Kinderveld, where I met my wife. And I didn't ride for a couple of years. And my wife one day I said to my wife, "Listen, I really want to start riding again. I really miss it. I'm riding a little bit in the closet, friends of mine's motorcycles. I want a bike." So she said, "Well, I'll tell you what. Show it to me. If I like the color, I'll let you buy it." So I said, "Great. It's in the garage." It was already I already bought the bike. It was already in the garage, and it was this weird blue Harley 883, this sporty. And I rode that bike for about 6 months until I realized, no disrespect to guys who ride Sportsters, that it was like an oversized moped, and I was going to get killed on it.
Yeah.
So I bought a 1989 FL for which is a strip dresser, for I think $5,200. They gave me the full 3100 that I paid for the sporty. So the bike cost me like 2 grand. And I rode that. I actually rode that bike from 1989 to 2002.
Hmm.
I had it. It was bored and stroked. I put thunder headers on that bike, it was sort of a piggy, but an 80 cubic inch bike. When I was done with it, it had 100 foot-pounds of torque to the rear wheel. And I sent you a picture. It looks like an old, fat old bike.
Yeah,
It was a rocket ship, real rocket ship.
man.
And I used to ride with a group called Sport Touring. They're a really fast. They have what they call a misdemeanor ride, and they had a felony ride. And I always rode with the felony riders because they were whipping back roads. And I'm sitting on this big fat Harley. They're riding Moto Guzzi's and they're riding, the little BMWs, and I'm riding this bike and I'm singing while I'm riding and I'm dancing. And one guy stopped me. He says, "Come on, tell me that's a sport bike that you had made into a Harley." I put 10,000 miles a year on my bike. I loved it. I really loved riding. And I had a lot of different bikes. I mean, I had that bike was truly my favorite. My wife and I would go into the city meaning New York City, where I live,
Yeah,
Manhattan. There was no traffic. I mean, there was traffic, but I'm on a motorcycle. I didn't
yeah,
split lane. It's not like I was driving a VFR, but we'd ride through the tunnel and we'd be singing, songs from Broadway shows, and it was great. And you park right next to the restaurant. Nobody cares. You get back on the bike, you go home. Doesn't cost you $50 to park. It was great.
yeah. That's
But
great. That's good times. That's a time where you could really enjoy life. And the motorcycle is all part of it. But I think part of riding a motorcycle is the mental aspect. Riding right in your mind. And I know when I ride, I forget all my worries and I'm in the right mindset. It really brings me to a different place. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how religion is sort of like being in the right mindset, kind of like when you're on a bike and you're riding in that same mindset.
and I agree with you 1,000,000%. I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Riding a motorcycle to me was an incredible rush, but it was also an incredible spiritual experience.
Right.
Because as I said to friends of mine, you have an Austin Healey, and it's great. But you can ride as fast as you want, but you're looking at things through a window. When you're on a motorcycle, you're part of nature. And I can tell you some stories where I was in thunderstorms and rainstorms, and you got no place to pull over. You can't even see where the cars are in front of you. But I think that for me, a lot of the riding for me was really making me one with nature, one with God. And don't take this the wrong way, but just so you understand, I believe, and the magic word is believe, that there is a God. Doesn't make it true. Religion is a belief system because you believe it. They call it a faith because you have faith. We had a patient in the hospital who was 28 years old, and she was walking her dog in the field, and she either had a stroke or a heart attack, and nobody knows how long she was without oxygen. 28, married 6 months. And my first day in the hospital, she was in the ICU, and I saw her. And The mother asked me after about a month and a half if I believed that God heard all prayers. I said, listen, when I'm on my motorcycle, I'm davening. I practice all my cantorial stuff when I'm on a motorcycle. I mean, I pulled up next to a group of Hasidim in the middle of New York City, and I'm practicing stuff from High Holidays. Excuse me, they looked at some lunatic on a motorcycle singing "Unatana Toget." They didn't know what to do. They didn't know. I swear to God, they didn't know what to do. But I said to her, she said, "Do you believe that God hears all prayers?" And I said, "You know that I'm a rabbi, but the first word that I'm going to use, you're not going to like. If there is a God," she looked at me. "I don't know if there is one. I believe there is one. Doesn't make it real. Then yes, he or she, depending on what your bent is in your belief in God, hears all prayers. Sometimes the answer is no. But maybe, what if there is no God? And if there is no God, then my prayers and what I do spiritually is putting good energy into the universe. And that's a win in and of itself. That to me is the win. There was a cantor up North Jersey. His name was Elon Mamber. He should rest in peace. And he started a motorcycle group called Hillel's Angels.
Right.
And they were Hillel and I were and Elon Hillel. Elon and I were friends. And I'd be doing a funeral up at a cemetery, and I'd hear, it's hard to hear, but I hear his Goldwing coming up, and I go, "Oh, I guess you just did a funeral." And I'd ride my motorcycle to shul, and I did a thing with my congregants where I put $5 in the shul's, charity box, and we'll go for a ride. And one lady, I'm riding the FL, she puts her chin on my shoulder, and she goes, "I love this. It feels great and with my eyes closed." And I said to her, "Yeah, me too. It feels great with my eyes closed. I love riding with my eyes closed." But I believe that riding is coming as close to nature as you can. Very, very spiritual. Very spiritual.
So a lot of people, I ride a Harley, pretty modern, 24 Road Glide, and a lot of times I like to ride with. I have a special ring. It's very special to me, and it's somewhat religious to me also. I'm wondering if you could talk about people's belief in the power of spirituality as it pertains to having, maybe a necklace or a special ring or something like that, and the feeling of being protected while riding.
Well, I don't, I mean, I belonged to two Jewish motorcycle clubs, Star of David, which doesn't exist anymore, and I'm a founding charter member of Chai Riders. Um, my, I believe, so here's a story. First of all, I wrote a book called From Cross to Cross: The Musings of a Jewish Boy Riding His Motorcycle Through the Christian World. I'd say a lot of things. I think I sold 200 copies. My mother brought 180 of them, something like that. But but um, but the book isn't Hemingway. It's Lenny Mandel. It's really my head trip. And one of the things I remember really vividly, I mean, and I rode with a brain bucket, which friends of mine thought I was nuts. And the minute I crossed the line to Connecticut, my brain bucket was off of my arm, and I would ride just the way I. Listen, when I grew up, there was no helmet law in Brooklyn. We didn't have
Yeah.
a helmet law in New York. And then I moved to Florida. I was playing ball in Florida, and that's football. And I sent my motorcycle down to Florida. They had no helmet law. Now I wouldn't ride in Florida if they gave me $1,000,000 because everybody drives like this. You can't see their heads on top of the steering wheel. But I rode with um, I'm trying to think if I actually rode with anything that I thought was
Maybe
no.
a
My,
mezuzah.
my motorcycle had a Brandeis College sticker in Hebrew on the back.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I mean,
That'll count.
for me, I mean, I had guys, can you bless a mezuzah on my bike? Bless a mezuzah on your bike. Mezuzah is supposed to go on your door. You want it on your bike? No problem. Um, but there are a lot of people who, as an example, I have a mezuzah in my house and a lot of rooms and my synagogue as well. And um, I'm a chaplain with law enforcement and I carry. And the only place I kiss the mezuzah is at the range. I walk into the range, I kiss the mezuzah. I leave the range, I kiss the mezuzah. And that to me is me saying, I hope you're watching. So there are plenty of people who do carry something or wear something that's very special to them. That's not only spiritual, but sort of like the mezuzah watches over the house. You know, it's like God protecting your house.
Right.
I think a lot of people believe that about little things that they have. My friend Bobby Lash, who was a barrister in Toronto, I went to camp with him in the 50s, and my wife and I in 2000 took a trip to Montreal on a motorcycle, and Bobby lived in Toronto, and I called him. I hadn't spoken to him in 40 years, and I said, "Hi, do you know who this is?" And he goes, "Yeah. Do you still say your prayers at night before you go to sleep?" Wow. So I said, "Look, I'm coming to Toronto, but I want you to know I ride a motorcycle." "You do?" "Yeah." "When did you start?" I said, "I don't know. It was about 16." He goes, "Me too. I started when I was 16." He was a member of Yowies, Yids on Wheels in Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we got into Toronto, every trip I took, the trip that my book of Cross to Cross is, that was Bobby and his wife and my wife Shelley and myself. I believe there's a lot of for a biker. I mean, even Christian bikers, the CMA, the Christian Motorcycle Association, they are huge on spirituality and God with you when you ride. I was at the rally. Was it in Asheville? No, I forget where it was. And I was wearing a Star of David T-shirt, which said Star of David Motorcycle Club. I wanted to call it Magen David, but with a Magen David, big Jewish star in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'm walking through all of these people, very few of whom were, no disrespect, members of the tribe. And I hear this lady go, look at that shirt. And I'm in the South, right? And so I'm saying to myself, I just better be very cool. And then she goes, Irving, look at that shirt. And I just start to crack up. And I can't tell you how many people wanted to know where they could get the shirt. So I mean, it's to me it was always very special. I was pretty damn good at it, and and it's my age now, and I'm a lot older than you, I promise. Um, it's it's my my son said to me at one point, "How long do you think you're going to be riding?" I said, "Why would I ever stop?" He goes, "What happens if you can't hold the bike up anymore?" I said, "I'll get a trike," but
Yeah.
I would never get a trike. That's not right.
Me either. Me either.
You know, I
Can't
could
do it.
do I could get my grandson's, well, my grandson's now 20. I could get on his Spider-Man trike if I want to get on it. But I think you're right. There were a lot of people who, when they ride, are very conscious of the fact that there is something out there that's watching over them.
Yeah, I think there's so many similarities between religion, and I'm not just talking Judaism, but I'm talking about
Religion in
religion in
general,
general,
absolutely.
and riding motorcycles. I mean, for instance, I sometimes I go on solo rides, because I enjoy it. I enjoy it. It brings me to a different kind of place. And other times I ride with my club or a group of people, and it's a lot like religion, where you'll go to church, you'll go to shul, and either you could go alone and you could talk to God, or you can go in a group and be there on for a Friday night service or something similar. There seems to be a lot of similarities. What do you think?
No, not even a question. Absolutely, lots and lots of similarities. And it's interesting when I was riding with Blue Knights. This is way before I had any intention of being a chaplain for a police department. But I mean, they were like so into being cops that their protection was the fact that they were police and they were riding with 30, 40 guys. But like you, I used to get on my bike and ride into the backwoods, ride into back roads, and just ride. I mean, it was just a question of my brain was, there's a book by Ouspensky called The Fourth Way. When I asked myself one day, I just, how the hell did I get home? Because there's a part of your brain that is concentrating on what you're doing, and the other
Right,
part of your brain is like, who the heck knows where it is? And
right.
I believe that for us, for people who ride motorcycles, for people who love being on a bike, it's so much of it is in their guts and in their soul. It's in their spirits that they are, even if they don't know it, they're communing with God.
Yep,
E- e-
yep.
And even if there is no God, they're communing with whatever God is.
It's an expression. It's just really cathartic. It's really cathartic that, I guess if you don't ride a bike, it's very hard to explain to somebody and it's very hard to understand, but it is very cathartic. I mean,
Do you know the song "Do You Believe in Magic" by Love
sure,
Spoonful?
sure.
It's like trying to tell a stranger about rock and roll. If they've
That's
never
right.
done it, they don't have a clue what it feels like.
Yeah, yeah.
They
So,
really don't.
so what about you? Do you have any before you ride? Do you have any rituals or meditations or prayers that you do personally, like before you get on a bike, or you just let the bike and the ride do the talking?
Never did. Got on. I Here's just a cute story as an aside. I don't know if you know what the Kessler Institute for Rehabilitation is.
I do.
My wife ran the volunteer program there for almost 40 years in West Orange. And she used to say to me, "Don't you dare go on a motorcycle until I'm home." She was home 1 o'clock. And unbeknownst to me, the president of Kessler back then had a bike in his garage, but he would never ride it to Kessler because they'd kill him. They would rip his head out. But for me, just getting on the bike was getting on the bike. I didn't have any rituals. I had a lot of different bikes. I had my chopper, which was a 1951 panhead chop that Scott Kovich, should rest in peace, and I put together. And my wife used to stand on the edge of the garage and watch me kick this bike. She used to just, tears were coming down her face because it took me like 8, 10 kicks. And I took it to a car show, the bike show at Tremonton, out all the way out in Route 80, and everybody wanted to sit on a bike, take pictures on the bike.
Yeah.
My friend Sonny said to me, "You could have retired. Just charge him $1." I said, "I'm not going to charge anybody $1 to get on the bike." But even, no matter what I rode, I had a lot of different kinds of bikes. But I mean, at this point in my life, I had VFRs and I had a KTM Duke, and and there comes a point where you want to enjoy your life, but you want to enjoy the comfort at the same time. My friend Bobby rode a Goldwing. I used to make fun of him. And then one day I had a 2002 FL, and my friend of mine said, "Why don't you go ride a Goldwing? Go ride a Goldwing. Go check it out." So I go to a place on Route 10 in East Hanover or Whippany, and they have a Goldwing. And the guy throws me the keys. Have a good time. I know you can ride. So my wife gets on the back, 6 CD changer. I'm listening. My Harley, you couldn't hear crap. I had 6 CD changer, and the radio was on, and we're rocking and rolling, and we're Route 287, which goes from Central Jersey to New York State. And my wife's, and she got her hands but they're like rubber, so it's like she's really comfortable when the music is playing and she's singing. And she goes, "I think 80 miles an hour is too fast." I said, 80 miles an hour? I said, "Oh, is that how fast you think we're going?" And then she leaned over me and said, "Slow down." We were at 110. But you have no idea how fast you're going. You
You're
just
in the zone. You're
you're
in
in
the zone.
complete. You're completely
Yeah,
in the zone. And you're
yeah.
right. People who have never done it, they'll never get it. They'll
Man,
never.
you have some great stories, Rabbi, and it's really interesting to talk all about the spiritual aspects of riding a motorcycle. It's amazing, but I'm hoping to talk to you more maybe on another episode because this is all the time we're going to have for this particular episode.
I
But
appreciate you even talking to me.
yeah, it's really great. It's an angle that, a lot of people don't get to speak to rabbis or any clergy about, riding motorcycles, and certainly two wheels runs through in your blood. So that's certainly evident. So thank you so much.
I try my
Um,
best never to talk to rabbis.
yeah, but well, listen, if we want to talk to you more though, how do we find you? Where can we find you if we want to,
Well,
I don't
Will
know,
has
stop
my
in?
email address, and if you want, I'll send him my phone number. If you just want to chat, I got no problem. That's great.
Okay. All right. So listen, this is what we're going to do. If it's okay with you, we're going to post some information on how to find you. And we won't be too intrusive, but for all the YouTube watchers, we're going to post it all down here. And, you can always get in touch with Rabbi Mandel or Rabbi Lenny, if I can call you that.
Or just
Um,
or just Lenny.
or just Lenny. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for being so real. You can always get in touch through me. Again, I'm Rich Jaffe, and I'm at Riding Counsel. You could find me at ridingcounsel.com, and you can send me an email. You could text me. You can pick up the phone and call me. If you go on your phone and you just type in ridingcounsel.com, there's a tap to call. You could just call me up, and I'm going to be on the other side of the line. So you could do that, and I'm always here for you. Again, I'm a podcaster, I'm a motorcycle enthusiast, and I am a personal injury attorney representing too many motorcycle accident victims. But until the next episode, I really want everybody out there to ride safe and stay wild, but legally. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Riding Counsel with Richard Jaffe. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the ride, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your fellow riders. Until next time, keep the rubber side down and ride safe.